Okay, so picture this. You're a young woman. You've got, like, beauty queen status, over 280 crowns. Hollywood's calling. And then suddenly you're gone, just like that.
It's not just that she disappeared, it's everything leading up to it.
Right.
The way her behavior changed. So suddenly the rumors, the possibility that she knew something dangerous.
Exactly. We're looking at this article called The Enigma of Tammy Lynn Leppert's Disappearance.
Oh, yeah.
And honestly, it feels like a movie, like a Hollywood thriller gone wrong. Her story takes us from, those pageant stages all the way to some really shady stuff happening in Brevard County, Florida.
Right.
Apparently back then, the place was full of whispers about all sorts of illegal activities.
Oh, yeah.
And then, poof, she's just gone.
It's really interesting how her early life, it almost seems like it was setting her up for the spotlight.
Yeah.
Born in 1965, Tammy started winning beauty pageants like it was nothing.
Wow.
We're talking over 280 wins out of almost 300 competitions.
That's you don't just, accidentally win that much,
Sure. No, you don't.
That's, Olympian level winning,
It takes real talent, something that draws people in.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just local pageants either.
Right.
She was winning on a national level. This wasn't just a kid who, liked dressing up.
Mm-hmm.
This was a serious competitor, a real performer.
And that drive, that performance aspect, makes her move to Hollywood seem kind of natural.
Exactly. Pageants, movies.
Yeah.
It's all about captivating an audience.
Totally.
And she wasn't just getting small roles either.
Yeah.
She was in Little Darlings, that movie with Chrissy McNichol and Tatum O'Neal.
Oh, yeah.
Spring Break, too. That was huge back in the 80s.
Movies that a lot of people have seen or at least heard of.
For sure. And get this, she even had a scene with Al Pacino in Scarface.
No way.
Yeah. The chainsaw scene.
Oh, wow. Tammy Lynn Leppert was in that.
Right there in the middle of it.
Hold on. So we're talking about a young actress, barely even 20, in one of the most, well-known gangster movies ever. Sharing a scene with Al Pacino, that's amazing.
It really is. She was on a path most actors can only dream of.
Yeah.
And then in August 1982, something happened that changed everything.
This is where things start to get dark.
Yeah.
Like you said earlier.
Tammy went to a party for the weekend by herself.
Mm.
And when she came back, it was like she was a completely different person.
Right. Her friends and family say it was a total 180.
Yeah. She became withdrawn, really paranoid, convinced someone was trying to poison her food and water.
And it wasn't just a small fear or anything.
No.
This was, serious terror. She wouldn't eat or drink anything unless it was sealed.
Wow.
Constantly checking for signs that someone had messed with it.
So the question is, what could have happened at that party to make her change so drastically?
Was it something specific?
Yeah, like a traumatic event, or could it have been some sort of mental health condition starting to show up?
It could be. Schizophrenia often starts to appear around that age, late teens, early 20s.
That's true. And her behavior, the paranoia, the delusions, it does fit with some of the signs of schizophrenia.
Yeah.
But the article also talks about Tammy saying she'd seen something horrible.
Oh,
something that could get her killed.
Yeah. She told her mom and some close friends that she had stumbled onto this drug and money laundering ring.
Yeah.
And that it involved some really powerful people in Brevard County.
Like police officers, bankers, lawyers, the kind of people who could make problems just disappear.
And she was terrified of what they might do to her if they found out she knew, right?
Right. But here's the thing. She wouldn't say who they were.
Yeah, that's strange.
What do you think that means? Was she trying to protect herself?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe there was someone specific she was trying to keep safe.
It's like a piece of the puzzle that doesn't fit anywhere.
Right. You'd think if she was really scared, she would want to expose them, get ahead of it.
Yeah.
But instead, she kept quiet.
Almost like she was stuck between loyalty to someone and fear of what would happen if she spoke up.
Yeah, it's strange.
And then just a few weeks after these, cryptic confessions, she vanishes.
No.
July 6, 1983, gone without a trace.
The article says she left home that day with this guy named Keith Roberts.
Okay.
They were supposedly going to Cocoa Beach. Tammy loved it there, spent a lot of time there. But then it gets even more complicated. They got into a fight while they were driving.
Oh.
And Roberts claims he dropped Tammy off near a bank. And that was it, the last anyone saw her.
But wait, right after she was dropped off, Tammy made a bunch of phone calls, frantically trying to reach people.
She did?
Yeah, she tried calling her aunt, and a friend.
Oh, wow.
But neither of them picked up.
Hmm.
Okay, imagine this. Someone just dropped you off after a fight. You're scared. You're calling someone you trust, someone who can help.
Yeah.
Why would you call if it wasn't urgent? If you didn't really need to reach someone?
Right. Right. Yeah, it really does sound like she was scared, like she needed someone, and then the police didn't even think it was suspicious at first.
It's unbelievable. The article says the Cocoa Beach Police Department pretty much treated her like a runaway.
Really?
They didn't even seem to consider that a young woman, especially one who had said she was afraid for her life, might have been in danger.
They had a missing person right there, and they just assumed she'd run off.
It's crazy, right?
Especially with everything else going on, her saying she knew a dangerous secret, acting paranoid, those frantic phone calls.
And on top of that, the article says they didn't even talk to some of the important witnesses.
Oh, wow.
Like Rick Adams, Tammy's close friend. He was the one she confided in the night before she disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
He could have told them so much about what she was thinking,
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even give them clues about who or what she was so afraid of.
Can you imagine having information that could help solve the case?
I know.
And the police don't even ask.
It's like they were more interested in dismissing her disappearance than actually figuring out what happened.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
And sadly, the article says this kind of thing was really common back then, especially with young women.
Yeah.
They'd just assumed they'd run away, chosen to disappear without even thinking about the possibility that something bad had happened.
It makes you wonder how many cases could have been solved, how many families could have gotten answers.
I know, right?
If the police had just taken those disappearances seriously from the start.
Those first 48 hours are so important.
Yeah.
Every minute counts. And in Tammy's case, those precious hours were wasted because they just assumed things.
Right.
But Tammy's mom, Linda Curtis, she wouldn't let it go.
No.
She spent her life looking for Harris. Tammy kept her case in the public eye.
Linda Curtis, wow, she was amazing. She hired private investigators, went on national TV, even filed lawsuits to try to force the police to do something, anything a mother could do to try to find her daughter.
It's incredible,
Mm-hmm.
The love and determination of a mother facing something so awful to keep fighting year after year, refusing to let the world forget about her daughter.
It's really inspiring. And even though she didn't find Tammy, her efforts kept the case alive, kept people talking about it.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's switch gears for a minute and talk about the different theories people have come up with to explain what happened to Tammy.
Okay.
The article mentions quite a few, each with its own clues and problems.
Okay.
Yeah.
One that really stood out to me was Christopher Wilder, the beauty queen killer. It's a chilling thought, especially considering Tammy's background,
Yeah.
and the fact that he targeted young, attractive women.
Yeah, his way of operating does seem to fit, at least on the surface.
Right.
Luring young women with promises of modeling jobs or photo shoots, then kidnapping them and killing them.
Yeah, but there's a problem with the timeline, right?
Yeah, the article mentions that.
What is it?
Well, Wilder's first confirmed murder happened a few months after Tammy disappeared. So it's possible he was involved, but it doesn't seem likely. The timing just doesn't quite work.
Okay, so maybe Wilder's not the answer?
Yeah.
What about John Crutchley, the vampire rapist?
Oh.
The article talks about him a little, and that nickname alone is pretty terrifying.
Crutchley was a scary guy. He was active in Florida around the time Tammy disappeared.
Yeah.
And he had a history of violence against women, drugging them, torturing them.
But if I remember correctly, he was ruled out as a suspect in Tammy's case.
Yeah, that's right. Even though his crimes were similar and he was in the same area, investigators were able to say it wasn't him based on some evidence. The article doesn't go into detail, though.
So we have two serial killers, both with really similar patterns, but neither one seems to fit perfectly.
Yeah.
What about Keith Roberts, the last person to see Tammy alive?
Right.
So the article's a little confusing about him.
Yeah, he's a key figure in all of this, and a lot of people have been suspicious of him over the years. His story about that day, about the fight and dropping Tammy off at the bank, people have questioned it, especially Tammy's mom.
What doesn't add up? What are some of the inconsistencies?
Well, Roberts said Tammy was agitated, wanted to get out of the car. But Linda Curtis, Tammy's mother, she always said Tammy was actually afraid of Roberts.
Really?
That there was something about him that made her uncomfortable.
Interesting. And what about Roberts? Did he cooperate with the investigation? Was he helpful?
His cooperation was inconsistent, to say the least.
What do you mean?
He changed his story a few times, which obviously made people wonder.
Yeah.
And then there's the fact that he was never really considered a main suspect, even though he was the last person to see her.
It's almost like they just believed him from the start,
Yeah.
even though his story didn't make sense.
It's a strange part of the case, for sure, but Roberts isn't the only theory.
Right.
Some people, even some of Tammy's friends, think she might have just disappeared on purpose.
Really? But she had so much going for her. A successful acting career, a loving family, friends. Why would she just walk away from all of that?
The article says Tammy wasn't happy with her life at home.
Hmm.
Some friends remember her saying she needed to get away,
Oh, so,
start over somewhere new.
but if she'd run off on her own, wouldn't she have contacted someone by now?
You'd think so, right?
Her family, her friends?
Someone. And then there's the fact that she left all her stuff behind, her purse, her ID, her money, everything. It's not really what you'd expect from someone planning to disappear and start a new life.
So, probably not a voluntary disappearance.
Yeah.
What about those things Tammy said about seeing something dangerous? Could she have been targeted because of what she knew?
Yeah, we can't ignore that theory.
Right.
If Tammy really did stumble onto some kind of criminal operation, she would have been a problem for them.
Yeah.
Someone who knew too much, someone they might have wanted to silence.
It's scary to think about.
It is.
But it would explain why she was so paranoid, why she was afraid for her life.
Exactly. And the fact that she wouldn't name names, it suggests she was either protecting someone or absolutely terrified of what would happen if she spoke up.
So, lots of unanswered questions, no clear motive, no body, and a messed up investigation that seems to have created more questions than answers.
Yeah, it's a classic cold case, but people haven't forgotten about it. The article makes it clear that Tammy's family, especially her sister Suzanne, they've never given up hope of finding out what happened.
And what about the police? Are they still actively investigating the case?
Not really, not in the traditional way.
What does that mean?
Well, there aren't any detectives working on it full-time or anything. But the case file is still open, and if any new leads come up, they'll look into them no matter how small.
So there's still a chance, even if it's small, that we might someday learn the truth about what happened to Tammy Lynn Leppert.
There's always hope, right?
Yeah.
And with technology always advancing, DNA analysis, facial recognition, even social media, they could all help uncover new leads in cold cases, like Tammy's.
It's a little bit of hope in a really dark and frustrating story. But there's one theory we haven't talked about yet, and it's one we can't ignore.
You're talking about the possibility that Tammy's paranoia, her fear wasn't because of any real threat, but because of a mental health condition. Maybe schizophrenia, like we discussed before.
Exactly. It would make sense with the timing.
Yeah.
Schizophrenia often shows up around that age.
Yeah.
And her symptoms. The paranoia, thinking she was being poisoned, it all fits.
It's a hard thing to think about, but we have to look at all the evidence. And it's important to remember that mental illness isn't a weakness.
Right.
It's a medical condition that needs treatment and understanding, just like any other illness.
So could Tammy have been going through a mental health crisis and maybe wandered off, gotten lost, disoriented? Could that be why she disappeared?
It's definitely possible, and if that's the case, it makes this already sad story even more tragic.
Right.
A young woman struggling with an illness, her fears dismissed, her disappearance mishandled.
This deep dive has taken us from the amazing highs of Tammy's early success to a really dark and uncertain circumstances of her disappearance.
It's a story that stays with you, doesn't it?
It really does. Tammy Lynn Leppert's story is a reminder that even in the brightest spotlight, there can be shadows lurking.
And that sometimes, even with all the clues in the world, the truth remains hidden.
Makes you think, right? Like, what if they had taken her seriously?
Yeah.
What if the police had really investigated what she was saying about that criminal operation? Or even just talked to the people she told about it?
It's a tough thought, isn't it? That maybe things could have been different.
Yeah.
If only certain choices had been made, certain things had been done differently.
But even though we can think about all the what ifs, we're still stuck with this mystery.
We are.
But that's where hope comes in, right?
Exactly.
The hope that even after all these years,
Yeah.
there's still a chance to find out what happened.
Yeah, there's always that chance.
The article mentions Tammy's sister, Suzanne. It seems like she's been really dedicated to keeping Tammy's memory alive and searching for answers.
Suzanne's never given up on finding justice for Tammy. She really believes there's more to this story than we know.
Yeah.
That Tammy's disappearance could be connected to other unsolved crimes in the area.
Wow.
Maybe even part of something bigger, a whole criminal network.
So she still thinks there might be a conspiracy, a cover-up.
Yeah, she does, and it's hard to dismiss it completely when you consider everything that was going on, you know?
Right.
Tammy's claims about witnessing illegal activity or sudden paranoia, the problems with Keith Roberts' story, the way the police handled the investigation.
Yeah.
It all adds up.
What about the more technical stuff?
Mm.
The article talks about age progression, images, and DNA profiles. Have those helped at all?
Age progression has been really important for keeping Tammy's case in the public eye, you know?
Yeah.
It gives us an idea of what she might look like now.
Right.
And her DNA is in the system. They're always checking it against new entries. There haven't been any matches yet, but these tools give us some hope.
Mm.
Someone somewhere might see one of those age-progressed images
Right.
and recognize someone, a neighbor, a coworker, someone they saw on the street,
Yeah, it could be anyone.
you know?
Yeah.
It only takes one person, one connection to break a case wide open.
That's what's so amazing about these cold cases. Even after all this time, one little piece of information, a new way of looking at things or some new technology, it could change everything.
Exactly.
It makes me think, what can we do? As listeners, is there anything we can do to help find answers?
Oh, absolutely. Awareness is key.
Okay.
Talking about Tammy's case, sharing her story, keeping her memory alive.
Yeah.
These things can really make a difference. You never know who might be listening,
Right.
who might have a piece of the puzzle tucked away in their memory.
Maybe someone out there knows something, but they're afraid to come forward.
Right.
Afraid of what might happen, or maybe they haven't put the pieces together yet. Haven't realized that what they remember could be important for solving this.
Exactly. And by keeping Tammy's story alive, reminding people that she's still missing,
Yeah.
that her family is still searching for answers, we increase the chances of someone speaking up with that crucial information.
It's a reminder that even with all the information we have today, all the news and stories we see every day,
Yeah.
there are still mysteries out there. Cold cases that need our attention. Families who need closure.
And sometimes the most powerful thing we have is our memory.
Right.
Our shared desire to find justice for those who are gone, to make sure their stories aren't forgotten.
So as we finish up this deep dive into Tammy Lynn Leppert's disappearance, what's the one thing you want our listeners to remember?
I think the biggest takeaway is that even when something truly awful happens,
Yeah.
even when a case goes cold, hope remains
Mm.
the human spirit.
Right.
The connections we have with family and community, the belief that justice is possible, these things keep us going, keep us searching, keep us asking questions, never giving up on the truth.
Tammy Lynn Leppert's story reminds us that every missing person is a life that's been cut short.
Yeah.
A family left with questions, a hole that can never really be filled.
And even though we might never know for sure what happened to Tammy, the search goes on, and maybe with all of us working together,
Yeah.
with awareness and sharing information, we can help bring her story to an end, finally give some peace to those who have loved and missed her for so long.
We've covered a lot today.
Yeah.
From the excitement and potential of Tammy's early career
Yeah.
to the dark and confusing circumstances of her disappearance.
Right.
We've looked at all the twists and turns of a case that has baffled investigators and the public for decades.
It's a story that really makes you think.
It does. Tammy Lynn Leppert's story shows us that even the brightest stars can be lost in the darkness. That sometimes the truth stays hidden, even when we have all the clues.
But it's also a story about strength, about never yielding love, and the hope that even the coldest cases can be solved.
If Tammy's story has touched you, if you're interested in the mystery, I encourage you to do some digging yourself. Look her up online, check out those movies she was in, read the articles, listen to other podcasts.
Yeah.
Really dive into the details, the theories, the unanswered questions.
And if something seems off to you, or if you remember anything at all, that might be helpful no matter how small or insignificant it seems. Tell someone.
Right.
Reach out to the authorities. Every piece of information, every lead could be the key to figuring this out.
Tammy Lynn Leppert deserves justice. Her family deserves answers.
I do.
And maybe, together, we can help bring closure to this story and finally shed light on the mystery that has haunted so many for so long. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and never lose hope.